Thank you for joining me. I'm Gord Long. A reminder before we begin, do not trade from any of these slides. They are commentary for educational and discussion purposes only. Always consult a professional financial advisor before making any investment decisions. So, what has been driving the global and U.S. market since approximately late August? The answer is threefold. First, global central bank liquidity injections. Two, some important global intra-market dynamics. And three, critical stealth moves as yet not fully covered by the financial media. I've talked about the first extensively in the latest long wave video, so I'll leave it to you to explore that 41 slide presentation. But as you can see on this slide, since late August, the whole money supply proxy has re-accelerated. Number two, the key global intermarket dynamic starts with the yuan dollar cross in August. When the offshore yuan blew through the old line in the sand level of 7 yuans per dollar in early August, you knew markets were worried about the U.S.-China trade talks sputtering. These reached their peak in early September at 7.19 yuan to the dollar. Since then, the yuan crawled its way back to the 7 yuan to the dollar level. I am showing here the approximately 1-year chart for the offshore yuan. Even if the U.S.-China trade talks seem unpredictable, yuan traders are expressing confidence that they remain on the right track. That has been feeding into the global capital markets' bullish tone. Where that is particularly noteworthy is in the global pool of approximately 14 trillion in negative yielding bonds. The EU, and specifically Germany, is in the epicenter for this. Since the German government runs a balanced budget, long-term bonds are in perennial short supply relative to U.S. Treasuries. Along with that, the long duration of German 30-year makes this asset singularly twitchy to market sentiment about the Eurozone economic growth. At the end of August, when the U.S.-China trade talks were at their nadir, the market for 30-year bonds was signaling the real risk of a deep European recession. Yields got as low as negative 0.27%. Now the yield on the 30-year bonds is positive again to the tune of approximately 0.16%. Okay, not great, but also not quite staring in the abyss. This is really critical that we pass this zero mark. Treasuries have followed along, reducing concerns created by previously inverted yield curve. When you consider interest rate movements must be actually considered as a relative percentage level move and plotted on a log basis, it puts the recent German bond yield movement into really a proper perspective. The lift in long-term German yields since late August was highly likely a key spark that reignited the global market's animal spirits in September and October, despite chaos in the U.S. repo market, or in addition to the chaos. It is viewed that though Europe may be teetering on the edge of recession, by lessening the U.S.-China trade tensions may save it from falling into too deep a hole, at least in the immediate near term. In early August, additionally, the Euro Stoxx Bank Index looked like it was about to implode. At 77, it had not been lower since the 1990s, but the group has found its footings as Eurozone long-term interest rates bottom. From August 15th to now, the index is up 20%. Disaster averted, at least for now. The group's move has lit a fire under global bank stocks. U.S. large-cap financials are up 12% since mid-August. Small caps are plus 8%, and Japanese banks, if you can believe it, are up 14%. European banks are the Lake Victoria, if you would, of the current rally in global financials, and therefore also the source waters for the ongoing lift in value stocks. Thirdly, I believe a critical stealth repositioning move, as yet not fully covered by the financial media, is also a major contributor to global markets since August. The silent signal that J.P. Morgan made in the midst of the repo chaos is critically important in my mind. The biggest U.S. bank has been quietly rotating out of cash and also busy repositioning its balance sheet in a major way. JPM's drain of liquidity via money markets and reserves parked at the Fed may have actually prompted the September September repo crisis and subsequent launch of not QE, if I can call it that, by the Fed in order to reduce its risk at capital and potentially lower its GSIB charge, currently the highest of all U.S. major banks. According to an overnight report from the Financial Times, that J.P. Morgan pushed more than $130 billion of excess cash away from the reserves, in the process significantly lightening overall liquidity in the interbank market. The bulk of this money was allocated to long-dated bonds, while cutting the amount of loans it holds, in what the Financial Times dubbed was a major shift in how the largest U.S. bank by asset manages its enormous balance sheet. Jamie Dimon may have effectively forced the Fed into QE4 and at the same time positioning JP Morgan in long-dated bonds that will rise in price as the Fed is forced to implement QE4 and reduce interest rates. It is taking full advantage of this expected right shoulder counter rally that we have shown to fully position JP Morgan. JP Morgan is exerting tremendous controlling influence that will produce significant bond profits over the next 18 months. Old-timers would surmise that JP Morgan is putting the final touches on their preparations for a recession. Also, don't forget, as we importantly pointed out in prior videos, JP Morgan is the holder of massive synthetic ETFs, which scared the market concerning counterparty risk during the October repo chaos. JP Morgan has a very privileged view of global financial markets that few others have. So as I began, what has been driving the global and U.S. markets since late August is global central bank liquidity injections, key global intermarket dynamics, and 3, probably what JP Morgan is really doing behind the scenes.